Long before stone was laid upon stone, before scaffolds rose against the Carolina sky, and before the echo of footsteps filled its endless halls, the Biltmore Mansion existed first as an idea, an ambition born of wealth, curiosity, and a uniquely American hunger for legacy. In the final decades of the 19th century, when the United States was surging forward with industrial confidence and cultural self-definition, one man envisioned a private estate unlike anything the nation had ever known. That man was George Washington Vanderbilt II. George Vanderbilt was born into abundance, yet his life was shaped less by commerce than by contemplation. While his brothers and cousins built railroads, commanded shipping lines, and amassed financial empires, George turned inward, cultivating a love for literature, philosophy, art, and travel. His education was broad and cosmopolitan, and from a young age he was more at ease in libraries and galleries than in boardrooms. Still, the Vanderbilt name carried expectations, and George understood that his wealth afforded him a rare freedom to build not merely for profit, but for meaning. By the 1880s, America's elite sought refuge from the noise and grime of rapidly industrializing cities. Country estates, modeled after European precedents, became symbols of refinement and retreat. George Vanderbilt, already a seasoned traveler, had toured the great châteaux of France, the manor houses of England, and the palaces of Italy. He absorbed their scale, their order, and their sense of permanence. Yet he also recognized that America lacked a tradition of such monumental private architecture. If such a place were to exist, it would have to be created from the ground up. The location came first. During repeated visits to the Appalachian Mountains of western North Carolina, Vanderbilt found a landscape that stirred him deeply. The Blue Ridge Mountains rolled endlessly into the distance, their peaks softened by mist and forests untouched by industry. The land was remote, rugged, and profoundly beautiful. To George, it felt timeless, an ideal setting for a grand experiment in architecture, agriculture, and living. In 1888, Vanderbilt began purchasing land near Asheville, eventually acquiring more than 125,000 acres. This was not merely an estate, it was a domain. Farms, forests, rivers, and villages fell within its boundaries. Vanderbilt imagined not just a house, but a self-sustaining world, one that balanced luxury with stewardship, culture with nature. The house would be its crown. To give form to his vision, Vanderbilt turned to the most celebrated architect of the era, Richard Morris Hunt. Hunt was America's foremost interpreter of European classicism, trained at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, and responsible for some of the grandest residences of the Gilded Age. When Vanderbilt approached him, the request was clear and audacious: design the largest private home ever built in the United States. Hunt responded not with hesitation, but with enthusiasm. He proposed a design inspired by the French Renaissance châteaux of the Loire Valley, particularly the great houses of Blois and Chambord. The style was deliberate. French Renaissance architecture symbolized culture, intellect, and aristocratic permanence, qualities Vanderbilt admired and wished to evoke. This would not be a copy of any single château, but a synthesis, a uniquely American interpretation of European grandeur. The scale of the project was unprecedented: more than 4 acres under roof, over 250 rooms, towers, courtyards, loggias, and endless corridors. Every element would be custom designed, from stone carvings to ironwork. Hunt understood that such a structure demanded not only artistic brilliance, but logistical mastery. It would take years, thousands of workers, and immense resources to bring the vision to life. Construction began in 1889, transforming the quiet mountain landscape into a vast industrial operation. Quarries were opened on the estate itself to supply limestone. Rail lines were extended to transport materials. Workshops were built to shape wood, metal, and stone. Craftsmen arrived from across the country and from Europe: masons, carvers, plasterers, and artists, each contributing a piece of their skill to the growing monument. Yet Vanderbilt was not content to build merely upward. He believed the land itself must be shaped with equal care. For this, he enlisted Frederick Olmsted, the legendary landscape architect responsible for New York's Central Park and the grounds of countless public and private spaces. Olmsted viewed the estate not as a decorative garden, but as a living system. He envisioned managed forests, productive farms, and carefully composed vistas that framed the house while preserving the natural beauty of the mountains. Together, Vanderbilt, Hunt, and Olmsted formed a rare triumvirate of ambition, artistry, and intellect. Each shared a belief in permanence, a desire to create something that would endure beyond their lifetimes. The Biltmore project was not rushed. Decisions were debated, revised, and refined. Time itself became a tool of craftsmanship. As the walls rose and towers took shape, Biltmore began to dominate the landscape. Its silhouette cut sharply against the sky, a European dream transplanted into the American wilderness. Locals watched with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Nothing like this had ever been attempted in the region or the nation. Rumors spread of endless rooms, underground passageways, and fortunes poured into stone. Inside, the house took on a life of its own. Hunt designed each space to serve both function and spectacle. Grand halls would impress guests, intimate chambers would comfort their owner. The central axis of the house emphasized balance and procession, guiding movement through a carefully choreographed experience. Light, height, and proportion were manipulated to inspire wonder. George Vanderbilt visited frequently, walking the grounds, inspecting progress, and engaging directly with architects and craftsmen. Though reserved by nature, he was deeply involved in every detail. He selected books for the library, artworks for the walls, and furniture that reflected his taste for both elegance and comfort. This was not a showpiece alone, it was to be his home. As the 1890s progressed, Biltmore stood as a testament to a particular moment in American history, a time when private wealth could rival royal power and when individuals sought to define culture through creation. Yet beneath the splendor lay a quieter intention. Vanderbilt envisioned Biltmore as a place of learning, reflection, and harmony between human ambition and the natural world. When the house finally neared completion, it was already clear that Biltmore was more than a mansion. It was a statement about art, about responsibility, and about the possibilities of the American imagination. The dream that began in the mind of a solitary, book-loving heir had become a stone reality, rising from the mountains as if it had always belonged there. By the early 1890s, the Biltmore Mansion stood largely complete in form, though its soul was still being shaped by countless hands and decisions. The stone exterior had risen into a complex arrangement of towers, turrets, and steeply pitched roofs, each line carefully calculated to evoke the French Renaissance while asserting a presence unmistakably its own. Against the backdrop of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the house appeared almost unreal, as if transporting from another continent and another century. Inside, the scale of the undertaking became even more apparent. Corridors stretched far beyond the eye's immediate reach. Ceilings soared, supported by carved beams and stone arches. Every room bore evidence of deliberate craftsmanship. No two spaces were identical, yet all were bound by a unified architectural language that spoke of order, refinement, and permanence. The heart of the house was the banquet hall. Rising 7 stories to its timbered ceiling, it was designed as a space of awe. Tall windows admitted filtered mountain light by day, while massive chandeliers would later cast golden illumination across the room by night. At one end stood a monumental fireplace, carved with heraldic motifs and crowned by a musician's gallery. This hall was not merely a dining room, it was a ceremonial chamber, a modern echo of medieval feasting halls, intended to impress and inspire reverence. Nearby, the library revealed George Vanderbilt's inner world more clearly than any other space. 3 stories high and lined with walnut paneling, it housed more than 10,000 volumes collected from across Europe and America. The books reflected Vanderbilt's wide-ranging interests: classical literature, philosophy, science, history, and contemporary thought. Sunlight entered through tall windows, illuminating globes, reading tables, and quiet alcoves. This was a sanctuary of intellect, designed not for display alone, but for sustained contemplation. Beyond these grand public spaces lay an intricate network of private rooms, guest chambers, service corridors, and stairways. The house was designed to accommodate large numbers of visitors while maintaining strict separation between public life and private routine. Servants moved through hidden passageways, unseen yet essential, ensuring that the visible world of Biltmore functioned with effortless precision. Technologically, the mansion stood at the forefront of modern living. Electricity, still a novelty in many American homes, was fully integrated. The house possessed its own power plant, providing reliable illumination and energy. Indoor plumbing, central heating, and a sophisticated ventilation system ensured comfort regardless of season. These innovations were concealed within walls and floors, preserving the illusion of timeless grandeur while embracing the conveniences of the modern age. On Christmas Eve, 1895, George Vanderbilt formally opened Biltmore House to family and friends. The timing was symbolic. Christmas, with its associations of tradition, generosity, and renewal, offered the perfect moment to unveil a home conceived as a place of gathering and reflection. Guests arrived by train, then traveled through the estate's winding roads, catching glimpses of the house framed by forests and hills before finally approaching its grand entrance. Inside, they encountered a world unlike any other in America. Music echoed through vast halls. Fires burned in countless hearths. The scent of evergreen and polished wood filled the air. Guests wandered from room to room, marveling at the scale and detail, yet also noting the sense of warmth and hospitality that Vanderbilt had insisted upon. Despite its size, Biltmore did not feel cold or distant. It felt lived in. Life at Biltmore during the Gilded Age followed a rhythm shaped by seasons, social obligations, and Vanderbilt's own temperament. Winters were often spent in the warmer climates of the South or abroad, while summers brought extended stays in Asheville. When in residence, Vanderbilt hosted scholars, artists, diplomats, and members of high society. Conversations ranged from politics and economics to literature and science. Biltmore became a crossroads of ideas as much as a gathering place for the wealthy. Yet George Vanderbilt was not a man consumed by spectacle. He valued privacy and routine. Mornings were often spent reading or walking the grounds. Afternoons might include correspondence, estate management, or quiet study. Evenings brought dinner with guests, followed by music, discussion, or solitary reflection in the library. The house was large enough to accommodate both grandeur and solitude, a balance Vanderbilt cherished. Beyond the mansion walls, the estate functioned as a vast and carefully managed enterprise. Farms produced dairy, meat, fruits, and vegetables, supplying the household and surrounding communities. Vineyards experimented with American grape varieties. Forests were managed according to principles of scientific forestry, a revolutionary approach in an era of widespread deforestation. Under Vanderbilt's direction, Biltmore became a model of sustainable land use. Frederick Olmsted's influence was evident everywhere. Roads curved gently to reveal carefully composed vistas. Open meadows framed long views of the mountains, while dense woodlands provided contrast and enclosure. The landscape was not forced into rigid symmetry, but shaped to enhance its natural character. Olmsted believed that beauty and utility need not be opposed, and Biltmore stood as proof of that philosophy. The servants who sustained this world formed a community of their own. Hundreds lived and worked on the estate, occupying cottages and service buildings scattered across the grounds. Their days were governed by strict schedules and hierarchies, yet many found stability and pride in their roles. Biltmore provided employment, education, and a measure of security rare in rural Appalachia at the time. As the century drew to a close, Biltmore existed at the height of its creator's vision. It was a private retreat, a cultural center, and a working estate, seamlessly integrated into the surrounding landscape. Yet the world beyond its gates was changing rapidly. Industrial expansion, social reform movements, and shifting economic realities were beginning to challenge the foundations of the Gilded Age. George Vanderbilt, observant and thoughtful, sensed these changes. Though immensely wealthy, he understood that fortunes could fade and that the future was uncertain. Still, in these years, Biltmore stood as a triumph of imagination and will, a place where art, nature, and intellect converged under one roof. In 1898, George Vanderbilt entered a new chapter of life with his marriage to Edith Stuyvesant Dresser, a woman whose refinement and social grace complemented his own contemplative disposition. Edith was educated, cultured, and adept at the subtleties of high society. She understood the complexities of managing a household of unparalleled scale and navigating the social expectations that accompanied such wealth. Their union was both a partnership and a continuation of Vanderbilt's vision for Biltmore as a place of intellect, hospitality, and cultural refinement. Edith took a keen interest in the estate's operations and aesthetics. She supervised interior design updates, selected artworks and furnishings, and brought a heightened sense of elegance to the social aspects of the house. With her influence, Biltmore became even more than a private residence. It evolved into a symbol of cultivated taste and progressive domestic management. The house, already monumental, gained new warmth and sophistication under her guidance. Together, George and Edith hosted gatherings that reflected both their social stature and their intellectual curiosity. Artists, musicians, scientists, and scholars were welcomed alongside industrialists and diplomats. The discussions within the mansion's walls were varied, ranging from advances in agriculture to the latest developments in European art. Biltmore became a microcosm of cultural and intellectual life, a rare fusion of private luxury and public-minded engagement. Meanwhile, the world outside Biltmore was shifting rapidly. The turn of the century brought technological advances, new forms of transportation, and social upheavals that challenged traditional hierarchies. The rise of the progressive era demanded attention to labor, education, and environmental stewardship. Vanderbilt, ever thoughtful, sought to integrate these emerging ideas into his estate. Scientific forestry practices, agricultural experiments, and social initiatives reflected a desire to harmonize human enterprise with ethical responsibility. The mansion itself continued to evolve. Rooms were repurposed, new decorative schemes introduced, and gardens expanded. Each addition reflected careful deliberation, not impulse. Though the structure remained a monument to Gilded Age grandeur, it was subtly reshaped to accommodate modern comfort, functionality, and the growing role of women in the social and managerial spheres. Tragedy struck unexpectedly in 1914 when George Vanderbilt passed away at the age of 50. His death was mourned widely, yet it also marked a turning point for Biltmore. Edith assumed stewardship of the estate, demonstrating remarkable resilience and strategic acumen. She understood the importance of preserving her husband's vision while adapting to the realities of the new century. The mansion, estate, and surrounding lands continued to function as a center of culture, learning, and refined living under her careful guidance. During this period, Biltmore also became more accessible to the public, though still selectively. Educational tour, philanthropic events, and cultural programs reflected Edith's commitment to sharing the estate's resources responsibly. She fostered a balance between privacy and public benefit, ensuring that Biltmore remained a living, breathing institution rather than a static relic. The surrounding region felt the impact of Biltmore's presence. Employment opportunities, agricultural innovation, and environmental stewardship brought tangible benefits to Western North Carolina. Roads, schools, and infrastructure were influenced by the estate's operations, integrating the mansion into the broader social and economic landscape. Edith Vanderbilt's management exemplified a progressive approach, demonstrating that wealth and responsibility could coexist with grace and foresight. As World War I reshaped global politics and society, Biltmore adapted. Agricultural programs expanded to support wartime needs. The mansion hosted dignitaries and community events, reflecting a commitment to service that extended beyond private luxury. Even in times of uncertainty, the estate remained a center of order, beauty, and intellectual engagement. Through these decades, the narrative of Biltmore evolved from a personal dream into a multifaceted institution. Its story intertwined with the broader currents of American history, the rise and decline of the Gilded Age, the challenges of modernity, the impact of world conflict, and the shifting roles of women and social elites. The house and estate were no longer just a reflection of George Vanderbilt's vision. They were living embodiments of adaptation, continuity, and cultural stewardship. By the 1920s, Biltmore had become a touchstone for historians, architects, and cultural critics. Its blend of European inspiration and American ingenuity symbolized both aspiration and accomplishment. Under Edith's careful guidance, the estate retained its elegance and grandeur while embracing the changing world, ensuring that the legacy of George Vanderbilt would endure long beyond his lifetime. By the mid-20th century, Biltmore Mansion had transitioned from a private Gilded Age estate into a historical and cultural institution. Under the stewardship of Edith Vanderbilt and later the family descendants, the estate was carefully modernized to meet contemporary needs while preserving the architectural integrity and aesthetic vision established by George Vanderbilt and Richard Morris Hunt. Electricity, plumbing, and heating systems were updated. Kitchens and service areas were reconfigured, and careful attention was paid to maintaining both comfort and historical authenticity. During the Great Depression, Biltmore played a stabilizing role in the local economy. The estate provided employment for hundreds of workers, from craftsmen maintaining the mansion and grounds to farmers tending the agricultural lands. These programs reflected the family's commitment to the community, blending philanthropy with practical support. Visitors and scholars were welcomed selectively, allowing Biltmore to serve as both a cultural beacon and a source of economic resilience. World War II brought further change. Portions of the estate were repurposed for military use, agricultural production intensified to support the war effort, and social events adjusted to the times. Despite these pressures, the mansion remained a symbol of continuity and refinement, bridging the Gilded Age with the demands of the modern world. Following the war, attention increasingly turned toward public engagement and historical preservation. The family recognized that Biltmore could not remain solely a private residence if its legacy was to endure. They initiated carefully planned public tour, educational programs, and cultural events that showcased the estate's architecture, gardens, and historical significance. These efforts were designed not to diminish the mansion's privacy or dignity, but to foster appreciation and understanding among a broader audience. Landscape management remained central to Biltmore's philosophy. Olmsted's original vision continued to guide forestry, horticulture, and agricultural practices. Scientific principles were applied to preserve the forests, maintain biodiversity, and sustain productive farmland. The estate became a model for land stewardship, demonstrating how historical landscapes could be actively managed rather than left to decline. During the latter half of the 20th century, extensive restoration efforts were undertaken. Architectural details, decorative finishes, and structural elements were meticulously repaired. Paint colors were matched to historical palettes, woodwork restored, and artworks conserved. Each project required collaboration among historians, architects, craftsmen, and conservators, reflecting the estate's ongoing commitment to authenticity and excellence. Biltmore's gardens, designed to complement the mansion, also received careful attention. Formal gardens, arboretums, and walking paths were maintained and enhanced to allow visitors to experience Olmsted's integration of natural and design spaces. Seasonal plantings, water features, and architectural elements were managed to ensure that the gardens continued to offer both aesthetic pleasure and educational insight. In the public sphere, Biltmore became a cultural institution of note. Scholars and students studied its architecture, landscape design, and historical context. Cultural programs, exhibitions, and educational initiatives highlighted the estate's significance as a reflection of American wealth, artistry, and ambition at the turn of the 20th century. The mansion served as a laboratory for understanding the social, economic, and artistic currents that shaped the nation. By the 21st century, Biltmore had fully embraced its dual identity as both a historic landmark and a living estate. Visitors from around the world came to experience the grandeur, craftsmanship, and vision of the Vanderbilts. The estate maintained working farms, vineyards, and forestry operations, preserving the ethos of self-sufficiency and stewardship that George Vanderbilt had championed. At the same time, the mansion and grounds offered a window into a unique period of American history, illuminating the aspirations and accomplishments of one of the nation's most influential families. Through ongoing conservation, education, and engagement, Biltmore remains a testament to the enduring power of vision, the integration of art and nature, and the capacity of a single estate to influence culture, community, and history. It embodies the convergence of ambition, creativity, and responsibility, a living monument to an American dream realized in stone, wood, and landscape. Entering the 21st century, Biltmore Mansion has established itself as a global symbol of American heritage and ingenuity. Its evolution from private residence to a major cultural and historical site has been guided by the descendants of George and Edith Vanderbilt, who have preserved the estate's integrity while embracing contemporary opportunities for education, tourism, and cultural exchange. Tourism has become a central aspect of Biltmore's modern identity. Visitors from around the world arrive to experience the mansion's grand architecture, meticulously restored interiors, and expansive gardens. Seasonal events, exhibitions, and educational programs provide context and engagement, allowing the public to understand both the historical significance and the ongoing life of the estate. These initiatives are designed to honor the original vision of George Vanderbilt while fostering appreciation for the broader narrative of American history. The mansion itself has been carefully maintained, balancing the demands of high visitation with preservation needs. Expert conservators oversee architectural, decorative, and artistic elements, ensuring that each stone, carving, and painting continues to convey the authenticity and grandeur envisioned in the 19th century. Technological advancements have been integrated subtly, enhancing visitor experience without compromising historical fidelity. Biltmore's grounds continue to serve as a living laboratory for environmental stewardship and sustainable agriculture. Vineyards produce wines that have gained national and international recognition, while farms provide educational demonstrations and support the estate's culinary programs. The forests are managed using modern ecological principles, maintaining biodiversity and honoring Frederick Olmsted's original vision for a landscape in harmony with nature. The estate's commitment to land management and conservation has made it a model for similar properties nationwide. Cultural influence extends beyond architecture and landscape. Biltmore hosts concerts, art exhibitions, lectures, and scholarly conferences. Its library and archives offer resources for historians, architects, and artists, supporting research that connects past and present. The estate's role as a cultural institution highlights the enduring relevance of the Gilded Age while interpreting it for contemporary audiences. The narrative of Biltmore also reflects broader societal changes. Inclusivity, accessibility, and educational outreach have become guiding principles, ensuring that the estate serves as a resource for diverse communities. Programs aimed at youth, students, and underrepresented groups extend the estate's impact beyond tourism, fostering awareness of history, art, architecture, and environmental science. Throughout the 21st century, Biltmore has maintained a careful balance between its past and present. It continues to operate as a working estate, preserving the traditions of self-sufficiency and stewardship established by George Vanderbilt. Farms, gardens, forests, and vineyards thrive alongside public programs, illustrating a holistic approach to heritage management. Visitors witness not only the grandeur of the mansion, but also the ongoing life and purpose of the estate. Biltmore Mansion's enduring legacy lies in its embodiment of vision, ambition, and responsibility. It stands as a monument to the transformative power of art, architecture, and nature, demonstrating how one estate can influence culture, community, and national consciousness. As both a historical treasure and a dynamic institution, Biltmore continues to inspire admiration, scholarship, and wonder, ensuring that the dream conceived by George Vanderbilt more than a century ago remains alive, vibrant, and influential in the modern world.